Well, good morning and welcome to another Coffee Break podcast where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies. My name is Chad Lingefeld from Loc-Doc Security, and I am excited today because our guest is Alex Judd from EntreLeadership, and we're going to have a really interesting conversation today because I've had a lot of good conversations with Alex, and he's going to be able to share a lot of really interesting insights from a business perspective today, and we're going to chat with him more in detail right after this.
Got so much to say, we got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh yeah.
All right, welcome back. I'm excited for this today. I have been talking with Alex in a lot of different aspects for a while, and I'm really glad that you were able to take time out of your schedule to be part of our conversation today.
Chad, I'm so excited about this. Grateful to you and your team for having me on. This can be fun.
Yeah, it's most definitely is. So you're coming to us live from Nashville, Tennessee, at the EntreLeadership Studios, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're in the EntreLeadership studio about 15 miles south of Nashville, kind of within the Ramsey Solutions campus. That's right.
Now, you guys are in the process of moving, right? Or is that where's the status on that?
The countdown is on. We're literally spread across 5 buildings right now. One of the business principles that we teach, and because we teach it, we also live it, is that we move at the speed of cash. And so we have been saving up diligently for years now, and we're just about to move into our 1,000-person campus, just about 10 minutes south. This has been in the works for a long time, and we are almost about a month away.
Oh, wow.
I can't tell you, people are excited about the building. I think people are more excited to have a parking spot for the first time in forever. People are parking across the highway. I mean, it is like Frogger trying to get to work in the morning, so we're stoked about it.
It's a real problem that people have every single day. So that's very, very relevant. All right, as part of our podcast, we have a segment that we call Rapid Fire. So it's basically 5 quick questions to kind of get to know you a little better. It's just a kind of randomly selected questions. So are you ready?
Oh man, am I ready? This sounds like a blast.
All right, here's your first question. If you could live any historical figure's life, which one would you choose and why?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would say Abraham Lincoln. I have a slight obsession with Abraham Lincoln, and probably to say it's slight is probably an understatement. I would love to live his life, to see life through his perspective.
Okay.
I'm challenged to give that answer because, I mean, that guy, he struggled with extreme depression. He was at the helm at probably one of the most crucial and crucible moments of our country. But I think so much of what would be learned by taking on his perspective, man, that would be such a gift.
Yeah, most definitely. That's crazy. All right, so here's another one for you. What food could you not live without?
What food could I not live without? This is going to sound horrible because I love steak, I love bacon, I love all that, but I love spinach. I eat spinach. I eat a massive plate of spinach every single day, just spinach. And I think it's because I was a Popeye fan growing up, so I just adopted that from my favorite cartoon character. Love spinach.
What is the strangest family tradition that you have?
Strangest family tradition. I don't know that it's a strange tradition, but every Christmas Day we play a family football game. And what makes it maybe a little bit strange is how competitive our family gets. Like no holds barred, bones have been broken in this football game. I broke my aunt's finger once and she still can't make her pinky finger straight because of this football game. So, I mean, it gets really intense. But then after that, we come together for Christmas and it's all good.
Yeah, we all make amends after that.
Yeah,
what's the most embarrassing moment from your teen years?
Most embarrassing moment from my teen years. Oh gosh, it's a really long story. Suffice to say, I learned a lesson about how you shouldn't be a punk and talk about people behind their back because their wife may be in the room. And the person that I talked about was my football coach and also my history teacher at the time. Thankfully, we laughed about it probably about 2 weeks later. His wife was not laughing, and I learned a valuable lesson about if you can't say it to their face, you shouldn't say it at all.
There you go. That's very valuable. Last question for you. If you were an Olympic athlete, what sport would you be a participant in?
Oh, man. I love to run, so my heart goes towards the marathon. I think that would be amazing. But I also, what is the one where they hop in and they ride the snow course down? What is that again?
Bobsledding?
Yeah, yes, bobsledding. That's right. I would choose to be on the Jamaican bobsled team. That would be a dream come true.
Just so you could be on that movie. I mean, that's
exactly. Also, maybe fencing, because fencing I've always felt like is a very, very cool sport as well.
That's awesome. All right, you passed the test. Thank you very much for participating. There was no score, but you passed it.
And maybe some would say that I won it. Probably.
Most likely of all the guests. So kind of diving back into the conversation today, and the reason that I wanted to have you on was because for a little over, I don't even know now, probably a year and a half, we've been part of the Dave Ramsey EntreLeadership All Access program, which is a kind of a business development program, which I'll let you kind of give your guys' version of that momentarily. But from us, we've been a huge fan of it because of the lessons that it taught us. And going back, I mean, Chris and I have talked about it so many times. Going back even 6 or 7 years ago, we both independently read Dave Ramsey's EntreLeadership book, and it was a playbook for us of kind of how we started to transform our business from a mindset and process perspective. So when we became a part of All Access, it was really transformational for our business because it actually took us, it forced us to implement the practices on a regular basis rather than just talking about them. So I said, hey, and you, I guess to kind of break into that conversation, you were the host of, and I guess you still are, it depends on which month it is now because you're so busy, the host of our Masterminds call, which we have every month. And so I've got to kind of get to know you a little better with that, and it's been really neat to see that process and see how your career has developed as well. So those are the kind of topics I want to talk to. But I guess to jump into it, give us an understanding for the listeners or the viewers that are watching or listening that may not have any clue what Dave Ramsey and EntreLeadership and what this All Access program is.
Yeah, so many are familiar with the name Dave Ramsey because he's probably the largest financial voice in the United States and potentially around the world today. He always says he teaches God's and grandma's advice for life and money. And he started that business truly with just an idea, maybe a dream, at a card table in his living room. It was one guy that believed that he could meet a need in the place where he lived by offering practical financial advice. Well, he took that small fledgling company 25 years ago and leveraged several principles, practices, had a strategy, had a vision for moving forward, but also, quite frankly, made a bunch of mistakes. And in that process, built up a 900-person company today that is truly changing the landscape of finance, but also business and leadership in America. And one day he realized, we need to be teaching this. And he actually started teaching it internally. At around the 10, 15, 20 people mark, it started to become impossible for Dave to individually mentor every single leader in the organization. And so he started just teaching this EntreLeadership class. They call it EntreLeadership because it's the passion of the entrepreneur coupled with the polish of a leader. So we don't just want a bunch of entrepreneurs because that's like herding cats, but also leadership. If you just say leadership, you can kind of start to think of management, and we don't just want a bunch of managers. So we said, okay, we want EntreLeaders, and that's what we're going to call this. He started teaching it internally to our team and looked up and saw that people were asking, hey, can I invite my real estate agent to this? Can I invite my wife to this? Can I invite my husband to this? Can I invite my pastor to this? Looked up one day and there were more people in the room that didn't work for him than did. And they said, okay, we might have something here, just teaching people our playbook for business and leadership. Well, they started with an event that we now call Master Series, that is literally our playbook for business. That event became the book that you just referenced, that your business partner have read. And out of that, kind of the event in the book, we saw so many people had the exact same realization that you just talked about, that they said, I love this information. And this is the way he talks about running his business, with principles, with a sense of mission, with valuing people over profits, with generosity, based on biblical principles. People said, that's what I want to do. But I mean, you and I both know there's a massive difference between information and implementation.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of really, people demanded, like, we need help putting this stuff into action. And that's where we created the coaching program. Just like any good coach, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. We're going to encourage you. We're going to push you. And that's what we do. We use accountability, perspective, and action to help take the principles that Dave Ramsey used to build this company and bring them to life in small businesses and large businesses, honestly, around the country. And we now have people from the Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
There's people signing up globally all the time. So that's, in a nutshell, what All Access is it's online digital coaching based on Dave Ramsey's business and leadership principles.
Now, this concept of the coaching and peer coaching and all that stuff has been around for a while, obviously, and it's in a lot of different flavors. You know, there's local, then you can stick within your industry. Like it's all over the place. The interesting part that I've found, and we've looked at these different things and tried a couple of different things out. The interesting part about All Access is it's because of the virtual aspect, the time commitment for that call is minimal, and it can be built into your normal schedule without having to travel and all that. But the regularity of it, and because you can participate in it on a regular basis, forces you to implement the actions, and you know that you're going to be asked about them when you get on the call. So it's either you show up and you do the work, or you don't show up and you're not going to see the results either way. And I think I'd be interested from your perspective, like the percentage, and I don't even know if you guys have a statistic on this, but the percentage of people that are sticking with it and that are seeing results month after month versus those that are just there for a short period of time and then they just kind of to fall out of it. What does that look like on a regular basis?
Yeah, I don't know the actual data on that. What I do know is that, I mean, just like a lot of things, if you do it half-heartedly for 2 to 3 months, you don't see results,
yeah.
Right? Because if you do anything half-heartedly for 2 or 3 months, you don't see results. One of the principles that we teach around here, and it's one of our core values that we truly believe in. We talk about it probably once a week within our offices. It's the momentum theorem. And so the momentum theorem states that focused intensity over time multiplied by God equals unstoppable momentum. And we believe that that's true in your personal life, certainly in business, in relationships, with something that you're working towards. But what we see with a lot of business leaders, and certainly business owners, man, if you own and lead a business, you do not lack intensity, right? Intensity is kind of the price of admission. It's why you signed up to do this thing instead of just get a job in the first place. You signed up to lead something, right? So you lack intensity. What we see most business leaders and business owners often lack and often struggle to find is a sense of focus over an extended period of time. And so to answer your question, I would say, like, the people that we really see have incredible, truly business transformational results, and transformational results for themselves as a leader, for their customers, for their team, probably between that 6 to 12 month mark is where things start to click. And not because they focused on one big thing that radically transformed the culture of their business, because they focused on the small things, but they did them every single day.
Yeah.
And they had someone looking at them, holding them accountable to the things that matter most, instead of just making mediocre deposits in a billion different areas. Every time they read a new book, they're making meaningful deposits in the areas that matter most. I think that's a success formula, both in business and in life. And so that's really what we've seen has worked for most business owners that enter our program.
It's interesting. I know you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, but
yeah.
he's this big proponent of, I'm going to tell you everything that we're doing all the time, because 98% of you will never implement it, you'll never apply it, and you'll never stick with it. I think it's interesting on the EntreLeadership All Access side that there's probably a higher majority of people that are taking that, because it's a more concise group of people that are taking that information and actually applying it, and able to see results. I'll tell you from my personal example, when I started with the All Access group, one of the things that I was challenging myself with was trying to implement core values and some KRAs within our organization. And it was the thing, core values, core values, core values. And I was focused on it over a long period of time and never made any traction with it. But every month I knew I was going to be questioned about it. And finally I got to the point at the end of a quarter where I said, I just have to stop what I'm doing that is causing distractions and get this thing done. And
God, that, as a coach, that I pump my fist at that, because that's like, people always tell us, oh, I just need to focus at working on the business. And it's like they sit around and they think that one day it's going to be convenient.
Yeah.
What I've learned here is it will never be convenient. So stop trying to wait for it to be convenient. It's just, you're going to choose to do the things that will move the business forward. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's
I get
perfect.
so excited. You said, no, I'm not going to do other things that may be easier and maybe more instant gratification, because I know this will make a more lasting impact. That's huge.
I was on an airplane and I was headed, I don't even know where I was at that point, but I was headed on an airplane somewhere, and I said, I'm not going to do anything else other than this. And I just sat down and focused on pulling it all together. And the reason that I bring it up is I would say that one change for our organization, just one of the simple things, it was an overwhelming task, like in conceptual understanding, but it made the biggest impact in the last 12 months of our organization, because we were able to have clarity of what we needed to be intentional within our organization. And I credit all of that back to being held accountable in a peer group with a coach to say, hey, you said you were going to do this. Why haven't you done it yet? Which is it's exciting for me.
I love that. I heard a pastor, he was a pastor and author one time, call things like a mission statement and core values and things like that. Because core values, really, it's just answering the question, what do we stand for? And he coined a term for that. And he said, what you're doing in that moment when you sit on an airplane and you say, I'm not going to work on anything else besides core values. And by the time we land, by the time we hit the tarmac, we're going to answer the question, what do we stand for? What you're doing in that moment, he used the term advanced decision making. Mm-hmm. And it's because you are making one decision about what we stand for, that because you made that one decision today, you've made thousands of decisions for yourself moving forward. You made decisions about who you're going to hire and who you're not going to hire, who you're going to fire, who you're going to course correct, your vision, which opportunities to pursue and not to pursue, which distractions you're going to actually go down the rabbit hole of and which ones you're not. Because you made one decision, it makes so many other decisions for you. And what we see is so often before people establish core values, they're spending all their time playing whack-a-mole, right? And just like there's all these decisions. I mean, the life of the leader is you're a professional decision maker. And if you don't have a framework like a core values or a mission statement that has been ingrained in your mind and heart, but also in your teams, you are crippling yourself, because you have to make every individual decision individually.
Right? You are preaching down the right path, because you don't realize the clarity and the what's the word, empowerment that it's given all of our leadership team and all of our team members to be able to, and that's the way that we've presented it. Here's our 8 core values, and it's not just a list of words on a piece of paper. This is a filter by which we can make decisions. When you're by yourself on a job site, you can make decisions based off of this filter. When we're making big project decisions, we can make decisions based off of this filter, and it's laid out. So what you just said is absolutely true. It has reduced the decisions that I have to make on a daily basis, the decisions that Chris has to make on a daily basis, very minimized, because we've already answered a lot of those questions by putting in the work. And it's one of those things where it sounds so simple now and it makes so much sense now, but in the process it was just this overwhelming task. But I would say has given us, like, all of the money that we've invested into EntreLeadership All Access, if we stopped right this minute, that one thing has made the biggest impact. And it's been well worth it. But that one thing with that investment makes me excited to see what's next, right?
Yep, 100%. And I would even go to the extent of saying once you have a product that legitimately meets a need in the marketplace, right? That is prerequisite number one to actually have a business. Once you have a product that actually meets a need in the marketplace, the greatest step you can take to scale and grow your business is create core values and have a compelling why for why you're in business. Because when you do that, you, like you said, you give team members that aren't you the ability to make decisions like you. But then the next thing I would say, which y'all have done so expertly because you actually stuck to it, is I'm not saying anything new.
Yeah.
Everyone and their dog, if they're in business, knows we should have core values. And most businesses we've found do have core values, but the number of people that do have core values compared to the number of people that actually use them,
Yeah.
it's a ridiculous ratio. So you've done the hard work of saying, we're going to not just communicate these things, we're going to over communicate them, and we are going to intentionally weave them into the fabric of our business because you believed in the difference that it was going to make. So that's the difference maker that's setting y'all apart right now in the marketplace, is you're saying we're not just going to have them, we're actually going to use them.
So I want to ask you, and it may take you a second to think this through, but another success story from another business that you have been part of a coaching process with, that you've seen them be able to implement some things in their business and to see great value out of. But while you're working on that, I wanted to kind of understand the way that you kind of got started into this process, because it's been really cool to see. I know you guys just finished up with the summit. And you were on stage and a part of that. So tell us about how you got involved in this whole business and kind of how you have developed your career, because you've obviously made a big impact with a lot of people, and we're starting to see your face on a lot of different places. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm so sorry that you have to put up with seeing my face on a lot of different places, but it's so funny. Because it was Mother's Day on Sunday, I was talking to my mom about this yesterday, or on Sunday, and I remember in second grade, I was sitting in my parents' bedroom while my mom was folding laundry, and I remember telling her, like, I don't really know what this looks like, but wouldn't it be a cool job to be a motivational speaker or teacher of some sort? I said that in second grade.
Oh, wow.
And she looked at me and she said, well, Alex, I think you need to do something first, that's so true. That's great advice. But it's crazy. Now, I mean, that is my dream and my vision for my career is that I get to teach, communicate, lead, and work with people and add value in that way. And the fact that I'm getting to do that stuff now is at 27 is kind of mind blowing, to be quite honest with you. But the path leading up to here, it takes a lot of, like many people's paths, it takes a lot of left turns and pitfalls and curves and all of that. But I was in Austin, Texas after college. And one of the things that I had done in college was I had helped run a startup in college with a friend of mine. And then out of that, and I learned a lot from that experience, but I also just took a lot of like odd job internships in college, not intentional at all.
Yeah.
But what I realized what I was doing is what so many of my friends are now doing today after they've graduated. I was just playing trial and error, right? I did an internship in the Capitol, realized I hate that, never want to work there again, and then went and tried a startup, and then went and worked for a church for a while. And after college, where I landed was much more in the sphere of my gifts and talents and passions, which was I was working with a leadership development group that was associated with a church out in Austin. That group is called Spur Leadership. They are incredible. They're still doing great events out in West Austin. And the pastor of that church that kind of brought me there, Dan Underhill was his name, and then Mac Richard is the guy that leads Spur Leadership. They're doing unbelievable things out in West Austin with Spur Leadership. But in being a part of that and kind of helping grow that movement in Austin, I started listening to the EntreLeadership podcast every single Monday. Mm-hmm. And just without fail, it became like this dose of, much like your podcast, practical insight, wisdom, encouragement, inspiration. And I would listen to it every single Monday on my run, to the point where I got to a point where I was transitioning my career, wanting to do something different, and sat down. I'll never forget, I was in a Starbucks in Houston, and I made a list of the dream teams I'd love to work for, and prayed over that list. And number one on that list was EntreLeadership. And I always tell people 14 interviews later, here we are. But I told him at the time, I said I would sweep the floors if it meant that I get to be a part of this team and for this mission. And they didn't need anyone to sweep the floors at that time. And I'm not a very good floor sweeper anyway, but they brought me into a little bit of a different position. And then as I've become immersed in the culture here, I've gotten to step into more of the coaching side of things and some of the teaching side of things. And I mean, I read the book like you did. And as I read the book, I just thought to myself, there's no way the stuff they're saying about this place as being a great place to work is actually like that. It's all true.
Yeah.
But if it's half true, I'll be happy. And what I've learned is that it's better than the book. I mean, we just got the best place to work in Nashville for the 11th time. The culture is thriving, but more than that, it represents an opportunity to make a difference. And that's what I love so much about this place is you're making a difference with people you love. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a snapshot into kind of how I ended up here.
It was cool. Last summer, Chris and I were in Nashville for a conference, and you hosted us to come by and visit the place. And I can say, just in the hour that we were there, you could feel the energy and the way that everybody were working together and the excitement that was there. So it's really neat to see that and to see how you've made a difference and an impact in the organization as well. I know you're on a social media fast right now, which is really cool. But just before you started that, there was a picture that you posted, which was with Dave Ramsey and Simon Sinek, which is really cool. What was it like to meet that guy?
Yeah, that was at our San Diego event. That was one of those moments where I'm like, this is just stupid. I do not belong in this picture. What am I even doing here? Just shut up. But the story behind that picture was hilarious. They came, so I got to host the summit event, which that was just insane as well. It was just a surreal experience, an incredible honor to be very honest with you. And I was in the green room. We were in between speakers at the time, and someone came into the green room and said, "Hey, Alex, do you want a picture with Simon?" Which is the stupidest question ever. Like, who would ever say no?
No, I'm good right now, thanks.
But we were walking out, and I saw Dave sitting on the couch, and this just gives insight into the person that Dave Ramsey is. I just kind of threw my voice a little bit, and I said, well, yeah, I like picture of Simon is awesome. What I really want is a picture with Dave Ramsey. How do I go about getting that? And he set down his plate of food, hopped up and said, well, let's go, man. Do you want a picture with me and Simon, or just Simon, or like, how do you want to do this? And so I'm sitting there, and then they're like, Alex, you need to stand in the middle. I'm like, what am I doing right now? How did this even happen? So yeah, I mean, like, you want to talk about two icons that are taking values and principles and using them to change the landscape of business in America and probably globally today. Like, you want to talk about leading with a compelling purpose. Yeah. So to be around those two guys, more than the picture itself, just what it represented as being connected to those type of change agents. Yeah. It was almost too much to handle.
Side note conversation. I posted a video yesterday talking about basically influence, the people that you surround yourself with and how they influence your life. And I mean, you talk about from a change perspective, from a leadership perspective, thought leaders and all that, those two guys, if you have any association with them whatsoever, is a major impact and an influence on your life, which is really cool. So
yeah, I'm just never going to wash my right or left arm ever again. I think they brushed the side of it.
Yeah, that may be disturbing at some point. So jumping back into the question that I asked you earlier, do you have an example of maybe another business that you've seen come through this program that's taken some of those tools, some of those practical applications, and implemented them, and the results?
Yeah, there's a couple that I think of, and actually a couple of these I highlighted at Summit in San Diego. There's a guy in one of my masterminds. His name is Wayne. He lives in Texas, and we were going over many of the things that you and I just talked about core values and mission statements in his mastermind. And there were about 6 to 10 other CEOs on the call, and we were talking about mission statements, and Wayne kind of stopped it for just a second, and he just kind of looked real quick, and he's got a pretty deep voice. He's from Texas, so he's good people. And he goes, whenever I started the business, I had one mission statement and one core value. And I said, Wayne, what was that? And and he said 3 words: feed my family. And I just, I will never forget that moment, because it reminded me that many of the small business leaders that start businesses, they are taking a risk. They're stepping out with a sense of audacity and boldness, primarily for the purpose of serving others. And in his case, it was to provide for his family. But what's been cool is we've been able to come alongside Wayne, and he's done all the work. We just kind of create the path. And he is now creating a framework where now so many other team members, employees are able to serve their families. And he's employing so many people now with a strong sense of purpose, with an idea that we're here to serve other people, with the right way of looking at business, not just for a profit, but to serve and empower and lead and work with people. He's doing incredible work. So that's one of them. Another one that we actually talked about in San Diego was Carissa and Christopher Hart. They own a dental practice, and one of the things that they were focused really intentional on over Christmas this past year is recognizing employees. We always say that a lot of times the last time someone was recognized was their high school graduation, that someone actually clapped for them. And that's crazy, right? Wow. There's so many stats that show that people respond more to recognition than they even do compensation. And that if you would just know them and appreciate and value the work that they do, that would be the greatest factor in getting them to not only stay with you, but fight with you in the trenches of your business. And so that was something they were focused on for their team more than anything, just because it's the right thing to do. And they had just crushed an incredible goal in their business. I believe they hit their annual revenue goal way ahead of time. And so over Christmas, they invited their whole team to breakfast, and their team thought they were just having a nice breakfast, and their team was already grateful just for that. Yeah. But whenever they got to breakfast, they handed out a bunch of envelopes, and they said, here's the deal. We're going to meet back here for lunch at, I think it was 1 p.m. We're going to meet back here for a late lunch. And we have a couple rules about today. When you come back here, first of all, you're not going to the office. Second of all, when you come back here for lunch, your envelope should be empty. And if it's not empty, then you have to give whatever you still have back to us. And third, you need to use it for yourself. You can't use it for other people. And then they said, open your envelopes, and they had given them each $500. And they said there were multiple people that were crying around the table because they felt valued, they felt appreciated, they felt recognized. And also, these were parents, these were people that were constantly focused on serving others. And that's really evident in the medical field and in dentistry. And this was something that they got to go do for themselves. And just the stories of impact that came from that singular moment. And that's just one leader making an intentional decision that we're not just going to give them a bonus and say, good job. We're not just going to pat it on their next paycheck. We're going to be really intentional about how we do this, because we want them to feel the difference that it's made. I was so proud of them for that, what's crazy is that is just evidence across the board of changes that business leaders around the country are making. The final thing I would say is there's story after story of people that their culture is toxic, and they'll come to the mastermind. And I know you've seen this, Chad. They'll come to the mastermind, and it is evidence that the culture is toxic because they haven't stepped up to make the hard decisions necessary to remove toxicity. Yeah. And what's crazy is the people in the mastermind, because they're not as emotionally connected to the situation, and quite frankly, that they don't have to have the hard conversations that this person's going to need to have, they're able to look at the situation black and white. I can't tell you the number of times people on a mastermind have looked at someone and said, time out, you need to fire that person yesterday. Yeah. And it becomes crystal clear, and it changes the landscape of the business, brings new life into the business, because the leader suddenly was empowered with the courage necessary to make the hard decision they should have made a long time ago. Yeah.
No, it's crazy. We've seen that on our calls multiple times, because especially the issue resolution or perspective. Hey, now here's something that's happening, and everybody kind of gets an opportunity to talk to that or give experience off of that. And it's been impactful for me, and I've seen it be impactful in other businesses. It's really awesome. We have a peer group that I'm a part of that is within our industry. that we connect with people all across the country, and we stole that idea and put it in our group because I find there's a lot of value out of it, and that's where that peer influence comes to place is when you can come to the table and go, hey guys, here's something that we're dealing with in our business. Has anybody else dealt with it, and do you have any input, any feedback that is neutral, because you don't have any emotional attachment to it. You can kind of talk to it in a different way. And we've been able to see that. And a really cool thing, just within the last couple of weeks, one of the folks that are on our masterminds group contacted me outside of the call and said, hey, based off of some stuff that you said, I've got this situation. Can you give me some feedback on it? And that was really cool to be able to connect outside of the call. And really to kind of get to know other people that you can grow with on an individual basis is really neat. I don't know. There's just something right now that's kind of in this season of business and this season of life that learning from other people and going through life with other people that are going through the same type of struggles and the same type of learning experiences as you are. And be able to connect with them and be able to talk through that together and be able to encourage each other and to give that impact is just, it's invaluable.
I was reading a book on Saturday. I think it's one of my favorite books I've ever read. It's called Leadership in Turbulent Times. It's by Doris Kearns Goodwin. She's my favorite living historian today, but she used a phrase to describe Abraham Lincoln's leadership and where he was, and the phrase, it just stood out so much to me. The phrase was, he was experiencing the isolation of ultimate responsibility. And what's crazy is, I know for a fact you are this way, and the business owners that we get to work with every day, they are surrounded by people. And what's crazy is they are surrounded by people, and a lot of times they feel incredibly lonely. And it's because they are isolated with regard to people that have the ultimate responsibility and that feel the weight of what that means. And so I think what you're talking about, like we fist pump whenever we hear that people who bear the weight of ultimate responsibility are getting connected to each other. It goes back to that quote, right? At the end of the day, you are the product of the books you read and the people you meet. And if we can all just meet the right people and connect and learn to ask the right questions, man, we can save a whole lot of time and heartache by doing more of the right things the right way.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Alex, I want to be very mindful of your time, and I say that a lot on here because we get into these conversations and they can go on forever and ever because there's such a unity in kind of the conversation that we're having. So thank you very much for everything that you have brought to the table today. I guess I'd ask you this: if someone's listening or watching and says, "Hey, how can I get involved in this conversation? How can they find out more about it and kind of get involved?"
Yeah. So the EntreLeadership podcast is probably one of the easiest entry points to get involved. So definitely check that out. Subscribe to that podcast. It's incredible. They put out content every Monday. But then if you are interested in coaching, and we'd obviously love to have you as part of the business owner and business leader community that we're creating. I tell you what, you can just shoot me an email address. My email is alex.judd@daveramsey.com, and we'll get you connected to the right information to see if you qualify for the coaching program and if that is a right next step for you. That sound good?
That's awesome, man. I know one of the things that my last pitch for this is when we signed up for it, the big pitch was it was month to month. So there was a lot of other ones that you sign that you look at are multi-year commitments because they want you to, they're looking for the value of the long term because that's part of it. The month to month from a small business perspective is, am I biting off more than I can chew? But it also, and the pitch that you guys gave was, it keeps you guys on the cutting edge to make sure you're bringing value. And if you're not bringing value anymore, then it's an easy mutual decision for both kind of parties to leave. And for us, it's been, this makes a lot of sense, and so we're going to keep going with it. So it's one of the things, it's a very minimal commitment. I was talking with somebody down in San Antonio back at earlier part of this year, and I said, look, you need to check this out and try it for 3 months. If it doesn't work, then you can walk away from it. It's not like the end of the world, but you will see value. As long as you show up and do the work, you're going to get value out of it. So
our kind of business strategy with regard to it is we're not going to suck, and then people will say in. And, so that's kind of how we phrase it. But like you said, 3 months, my goal for my clients is that they see ROI for their business I would love for them to see it instantly because some light bulb moment occurs, but I would love to see sustainable, meaningful ROI for their business within the first 90 days. Because if I can't do that for someone, then I probably can't hold my salt as a coach. So that's what I'm focused on, and that's what our team is focused on, is let's make sure that this program makes way more money than it costs for these people. Yeah, would love to hear from anyone that's listening here today. But Chad, I'm super grateful to you for having me on today. You're a rock star. We provide the information, but you do all the work. So we're your biggest fans, and we're rooting for you, man.
Oh, we appreciate it, Alex. For those of you who may be watching or listening for the first time, we've got a slew of these podcasts out here, and they're all very much directly related to this, business ideas and strategies. One of the things that we dedicated to when we started this podcast is we don't really talk about what it is that we do. We just want to be this platform to be able to share business ideas and strategies and be able to encourage each other along the process. So we have, I think, almost 40 episodes now online. You can subscribe, visit Loc-Doc.net/podcast. They're all listed there, and all the podcast outlets, you can subscribe there to whatever your favorite one is. And we also have this on video version on YouTube, on Facebook, and all over the place, so you can check it out and see all of that information if you prefer to watch it versus listen to it. But again, thank you, Alex, for your time today, and for everyone else, we'll see you next time right here on the Coffee Break Podcast.
Thanks.
To learn more about the topics discussed today and to connect with us online to hear all of the episodes available, visit Loc-Doc.net/podcast.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
The Coffee Break Podcast is brought to you by Loc-Doc Security. We'd love to connect with you online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Just search LOCDOCINC.